My name is Mike Reese. I'm the founder of Matchpoint Intelligence, a fully automated compatibility matching platform that instantly shows you compatibility between any heavy machinery vehicle, like a skid steer or a tractor, and any attachment that that vehicle can utilize. We work with e-commerce and rental companies to help you make more on attachment sales and rentals. So in this video, I'm going to talk about a concept that I think is going to be immensely helpful, regardless of what business you're in, but especially if you're an e-commerce or rental company. And the concept is throughput. So this comes from the theory of constraints, and specifically from a great book called The Goal by Eliyahu Goldratt. Um, but think of your business as a pipe with water flowing through it. And in this case, water is just a metaphor for customers, right? So throughput is the amount of water that can flow through that pipe in any given unit of time. And I'm going to give you two more definitions that we're going to use as we go through all this. The second definition is capacity, which is kind of what it sounds like. Think of it as the size of the pipe. So a bigger pipe means more water can flow through at any given point in time. And then the third definition is the bottleneck. So think of it as the section of the pipe with the lowest capacity for this particular example, right? So we have throughput, we have capacity, and we have bottlenecks. Let's talk about how an e-commerce or rental company works in 2026, right? So most of the time you have a website, right? And your website acts as one big pipe. That's where all of the people come in and they see your company for the first time. And then from your website, for the heavy equipment industry at least, there's usually two separate pipes that it goes through. One is a service pipe, and which is like the sales process, and then one is the e-commerce self-serve purchase process, right? So each section of your company can be its own pipe. It's fractal. You can take any component of your business and make like a pipe out of it in terms of measuring throughput. And the goal is to understand how customers are moving through this particular chunk of your company, where they're getting caught up, and how you can increase your throughput by maximizing, like mathematically making the most out of the capacity you have and increasing the capacity at different points. So let's go through a sales service process pipe as an example, because it is like a service process is the most traditional example of this in operations management. And we'll talk through this with different stations, and we'll talk through this to show you like what it looks like with real numbers. So your sales process behaves like a traditional service process in the sense that it's a human being interacting with customers that have additional steps that each of them go through. So we'll break it into three stages. We'll talk about the inbound phone line. So when customers are calling into your sales team, sending a quote. So when your sales team is like pulling together a quote and sending that back out to a customer, and then order placement and fulfillment. So when a customer is speaking to someone and placing an order over the phone, or when someone places an order through the quote, if it's digital, and then the order fulfillment team has to take that information and then fulfill that order, right? So three distinct processes that human beings have to be involved in that the customers move through as they're making their purchasing journey in your company, right? So we're going to add some numbers here. I'm going to give you nice round, easy numbers. And if you ever get lost, just rewind the video, or I'm going to post this on the screen as well. So you have like a quick guide, but just watch this a few times and study it. It's very, very helpful. So let's talk about section one, the inbound phone line, right? So customers are input to the pipe when they call. Your first section here is just the inbound phone line, and it's really constrained by like the number of reps you have. So say you have 5 reps at the phone, and each inbound phone call on average takes about 10 minutes, right? That means that each rep can process 6 customers per hour. So 6 10-minute phone calls, all sequentially. And we're going to do maximum, like perfect utilization for all of these examples. So we're just going to assume everything's working in perfect conditions because it's easier. So each rep can process 6 customers per hour. And you have 5 reps, so you can process 30 customers per hour on the inbound phone line. So again, our numbers, we have 5 reps. We have a 10-minute average process time for the inbound phone line. We can do 6 calls per hour per rep, and so we can do 30 calls per hour total. Now, the second section is sending a quote. So someone calls in, they ask for equipment, and your sales team's like, all right, cool, we're going to send you a quote. Maybe the sales team has to speak to a manufacturer to get additional information. Maybe they just have to do stuff in your system. But for whatever reason, it has to be done asynchronously. It can't be done on the phone call. This is an additional step, right? And say you have dedicated people for this step. So you have your inbound phone people, those 5 guys, and that's all they do. They just do inbound phone. But In your business, you have 2 people allocated to sending a quote. So they take the information from the inbound phone calls and then they do all the work to draft a quote and send it to a customer and all that stuff. On average, each of these individuals can send a quote out in 15 minutes. So one individual can send 4 quotes out per hour. 15 times 4 is 60. And since you have 2 people, you can send 8 quotes out per hour. So again, our numbers, we have 2 reps at the sending a quote. It takes a 15-minute process time to draft a quote and send it to a customer. You can do 4 quotes per hour per rep, and you can do 8 quotes per hour total. Right. Now, the third section is order placement and fulfillment. So this would be where a customer looks at the quote and then they either purchase it through the quote or they call your team back and are like, hey, I want to pay for this. Here's my credit card. Your team would have to take that payment, take that order and get it to the order fulfillment team in order for them to process it, get it shipped out, yada, yada, right? So say you have 4 reps here at this station and they can process an order placement every 5 minutes. It's very fast, right? So each rep can process an order placement every 5 minutes. There are 12 5-minute increments in an hour. So we'll say each order rep can process 12 order placements per hour if they're doing them back to back to back. And since you have 4 reps, you can do 12 times 4, 48 order placements per hour. So again, our numbers here, we're gonna have 4 reps, a 5-minute process time for order placement and fulfillment, 12 orders per hour per rep, and 48 orders placed per hour total. So if we look at our pipe capacity, right? If we draw this out, we have a pipe capacity of 30 customers per hour at the first station, 8 customers per hour at the second station, and 48 customers per hour at the final station. Now, how many customers can we process per hour in this pipe? Again, assuming perfect conditions, assuming customers are calling in 5 at a time every 10 minutes on the dot. Through this entire process, what's the maximum amount of orders we can place per hour? It's 8. That's the bottleneck. The bottleneck of the pipe is always the part of the pipe with the lowest capacity, so 8. And the bottleneck is also what governs the throughput of the pipe. So think of it, let's walk through an example. So say in 1 hour, we get 30 people coming in, 5 people coming in every 10 minutes, and our 5 reps coming in. So 5 times 6 is 30. And so we get our 30 people coming in that are doing inbound leads. Say every single one of them wants a quote. Now, every 15 minutes, we can get a quote for 2 people because we have 2 people at the quote team, right? So 1 hour goes by, we have 30 people waiting for a quote. 15 minutes goes by, 2 of those people have a quote. Another 15 minutes goes by, another 2 have a quote. Another 15 minutes goes by, so 45 minutes now, another 2 people have a quote. Another 15 minutes, the full hour now, another 2 people have a quote, which means 8 people of those 30 now have a quote. That means that we have 22 people left over that haven't gotten a quote yet. And it also means since another hour passed, we actually have another 30 people on top of those 22 that need a quote. So we actually have 52 people waiting and only 8 people have gotten a quote. So those 8 people that have gotten a quote, even though we have all these people on our order placement team, all 4 of those guys that can do this every 5 minutes, they can do 48 people per hour, but we only are having 8 people coming into this particular stage of the pipe. So they're only going to be able to process 8 people per hour. That's why the bottleneck governs the throughput, right? It doesn't matter how good the order placement team is. They can do a ton of work. They can actually do the most work out of all of our different stations. But if we have a bottleneck at any point in time, that governs the overall capacity of the pipe. So the one thing I want to talk about with the bottleneck, and we're going to go through this in an example here, is that there always will be a bottleneck. This is not a problem to solve forever. It's a problem that you solve over and over and over again. And as you do, your pipe gets bigger and you have more throughput coming through and it overall improves your business, right? The bottleneck doesn't get removed. It just changes. It just moves where it's at in your pipe. So let's start to put some real numbers here in terms of getting like some monetary value to this. We know that we can do 8 orders per hour, right? And say we're going to have like a $1,000 average order value. That's $8,000 an hour maximum that we can get from our sales team. Doesn't matter how great our sales guys are, doesn't matter how great our quote guys are, doesn't matter how pretty our quotes look, doesn't matter how fast our order fulfillment guys are. The maximum amount of people we can process, given the time it takes to do these tasks, is 8 per hour, and at a $1,000 average order value, that's roughly $8,000 per hour maximum, right? So how can we increase this? There's a couple different options that we would have. One thing that we could do is we could move people. We could add more people to the quote station. So say we take two people from the order placement team over to the quote team, right? So now we have four people on the quotes team and two people on the order placement team. It still takes 15 minutes to do a quote, but now we have four people. So instead of doing 8 quotes per hour, we can do 16 quotes per hour. We double the amount of people that we have, right? We can now only do, because we took two people from the order placement team, we can now only do 24 order placements instead of 48. We halved our capacity there, right? The bottleneck is still the quotes, but now we can process 16 people per hour rather than the 8 that we were doing before. So we've effectively doubled the amount of money we're making per hour from $8,000 to 16, right? We still have the problem with the buildup. So we still have 30 people coming in, only 16 people can get processed. Another 30 people come in. Now they're building up. Now they're waiting. A lot of customers are frustrated. And it's just overall like a really bad experience for the customer base still. So it's still not a great solution, but you can see how if we start to move some of these people around, we can increase the throughput of our pipe and the revenue that we're getting for our business. Let's take a different idea. Let's reset it. So we're back to having our 5 people on the inbound team, our 2 people on the quote team, and our 4 people on the order placement team. What if instead it only took 5 minutes to make a quote instead of 15? What if we improved the way that we were doing quotes? We changed something in our process, so now it's much faster, right? So our originally 2 people can now do the same amount of work that our order fulfillment team was doing. It's every 5 minutes. They can do 12 quotes per hour each. And since there's 2 of them, we can do 24 quotes per hour. So because we didn't move any people around, but because we improved the process as a whole, we now get 24 people through the pipeline per hour. So it's a massive increase from 8 to 16 to 24 just by changing how the process is done. Now, it's still the bottleneck. Our pipe at this point looks like 30 people coming in for the inbound, 24 people coming in for the quotes, and 48 people for the order placement because we haven't moved any people yet. If we did move people, say because we have a 5-minute order placement fulfillment time and then a 5-minute quote time, what if we made those numbers of the staff at each station equal? And we took 1 rep from the order placement team, moved it to the quote team. So we now have 3 people on the quote team and 3 people on the order placement team. Since each of them can do 12 quotes per hour or 12 order placements per hour, and we have 3 people, we now have 36 customers that we can process per hour at each station. So our new pipe looks like 30 people on the inbound, 36 people on the quotes, and 36 people on the order placements fulfillments. That means our new bottleneck is now the inbound. That's the smallest capacity that we have for the pipe. Now, our quote process is great. It's beautiful. It's fast. We got a lot of people on it. Our order fulfillment placement process is super fast. We got a lot of people on it. They can each do 36 customers per hour, but we're only getting 30 customers per hour in the pipe in the first place. So we're only ever going to be processing 30 customers per hour at maximum efficiency. So now the bottleneck moved. It's no longer the quote process. It's now the inbound process. But because we're getting 30 people per hour and at an average order value of $1,000, our throughput, our revenue for our system is now $30,000 per hour instead of $8,000 per hour. The only thing we did was we changed the quote process and to make it a lot faster, and we moved 1 employee. So this is why throughput's an insanely powerful concept to understand. You can take this and you can put this at any chunk of your business, any service component of your business to understand where the bottlenecks are, breaking everything into individual steps, measuring how long it takes to do a task, and identifying what the weak link in your business is, and just constantly doing this over and over and over again to continue to iterate and move the bottleneck and change things around, right? If we wanted to extend that further, by the way, what we would do at this point, since we have extra capacity on the back end of our pipe, is we would increase the amount of people coming into our pipe. And if we needed to have an additional person to do the sales team, we would hire them knowing that we would be getting full throughput on the pipe. So now we have 6 people that can do 6 quotes per hour each, 36 people, 36, 36, 36. Easy peasy, right? So that's the sales process. But now let's talk about e-commerce. And let's talk about why e-commerce is such a big deal and why it's such a powerful business and why Amazon is so large of a company from an e-commerce perspective and despite having the staff that they do. And I know Amazon's a gigantic company and it's a conglomerate of companies really, but like their e-commerce side of things, They process a huge amount of orders, and they definitely don't have a huge sales team to process all that stuff, right? So e-commerce differs from the traditional sales and service process in that the pipeline is always just open. It's just there's no bottlenecks or anything in there. What they have, in my opinion, are gates. So like binary 0 to 1 uh, doors that people have to open by like getting enough information about the product to be able to make a purchase. But other than that, it's like self-checkout at a grocery store. It's entirely self-serve. You don't need people in there doing processing and stuff like that. What it turns into is a logistics company for actually filling all this huge amount of volume that you're getting. So if we take numbers for the e-commerce side of things, and we start to like math this out the same way. Say say you get 73,000 visitors to your website per month, and we know that each month has 730 hours in it, so that you get about 100 visitors per hour, right? And say each one of those visitors is ready to buy and they know exactly what they're going to buy, and your website is set up like beautifully for it. So your maximum throughput that you would get is you have 100 visitors per hour um, on your website. 100 of those people will go to your e-commerce side of things. You have $1,000 average order value, and you have a $100,000 per hour revenue stream from that e-commerce side of things, right? All that work we did with all of the sales side of stuff only resulted in, at max, we went from $8,000 to $30,000 with those numbers. Now, with the e-commerce side of things, we're already starting out at $100,000. But the reason that we have such a good revenue stream in e-commerce is because we have perfect conditions. And this uses something that I call the five gates. This is a framework that I developed for e-commerce when I had an e-commerce company, but it really just governs how people make purchasing decisions subconsciously when they're trying to buy something. So the five gates are this. It's one, will it do the job that I need it to do? For heavy machinery, two, will it fit my vehicle? Three, can I afford it? Four, will it arrive when I need it to? And then five, which is inclusive of all of the above, what happens if it doesn't? So you have to think of these as literal doors that are closed until you present someone with enough information for them to validate that this answers those questions for them, and then that door opens and then they go to the next one. So in a nutshell, we're going to go through like a quick example. Say someone is looking for they have 200 acres and they need to clear the land out, and they have a tractor and they need to mulch it, right? So the first thing that they're going to do is they're going to look at the product and see, is this going to do the job that I need it to do? Is this even a mulcher? Because if you're looking at a bucket or an auger, they're going to be like, nope, and that gate's going to be closed, and they're going to leave and they're going to go somewhere else, right? Second question, will it fit my vehicle? This is what Matchpoint does, by the way. It's very hard to actually present this information in a palatable way. You have to be able to tell someone based on their vehicle if it's going to fit it or not. And like the naive way to do it would be to put like a huge table in there and say like it's compatible with all these things. But even that misses a lot of nuances because you have different like configurations of a vehicle. You can have like high flow, low flow. You can have different mount types. You can have counterweights, different transmissions. There's a lot of different things that go into it. What Matchpoint does is it puts something right on your product page, or if you're a rental company, right on your rental page, and customer selects their vehicle, and it will just tell them binary, yes or no, this works with your vehicle. No, this doesn't. If you have other particular options for your attachment, you can say, hey, other options are compatible, but not this one. Select this one instead, and then it tells them. So boom, that gate's open. Can I afford it? That's where you have pricing information and financing information, which is critically important because these are very expensive and a lot of people use them for businesses. So they might take loans because they're getting jobs, and then they can pay off that loan with the jobs that they're getting and the additional revenue they can get with this new equipment. Four, will it arrive when I need it to? This is where you have estimated delivery dates. You do not want to just have in stock or built to order. You want to have an estimated delivery date because you need to answer these questions for customers. They need to be able to see upfront without any additional like cognitive friction on their end. Hey, I need this by next Thursday. This shows that it's going to get here on like February 22nd, which is next Tuesday. Boom, we're gold, right? Now, the fifth one, inclusive of all the above, what happens if it doesn't? This is why Amazon is such a big company, by the way. They have a huge amount of brand trust because their return policy is so good. Even if you get the wrong thing, even if you answer all these questions, but you get something and it doesn't actually do the job you need it to do, it doesn't actually fit what you're trying to get, you know that you can return it with like very low friction. You just print out a return label, send it back, you get a refund. Even if you've used it, it's a phenomenal policy, and it's answering this particular question: what happens if it doesn't? For e-commerce, for construction equipment and things like that, you want to put warranty information, return information, shipping information, parts information, maintenance, that kind of stuff. All that in an FAQ right below the fold. And that opens that gate for customers. And that's the last thing that they really need to know, because by that point, if they're thinking about that, they've already answered all these other questions and they're just covering their bases. So, like I said, think of these as like literal doors that are open or closed. And these are things that people consider through their entire purchasing journey, not just on your website. But if you do your job right, you want to answer all of the questions that they would ever need in their entire purchasing journey so that they don't have to leave your website. Because if they have any of those doors that are closed, any of those gates that are closed, that with those questions left unanswered, what they're going to do is just leave. They're not going to want to call you because it's a huge pain to call companies these days. They're just going to leave and they're going to find that information outside, and maybe they're going to come back, but maybe not, right? So even if just one of those gates is closed, let's give it, actually, you know what we'll do? I have a real example from a company that we implemented this with. This is an e-commerce company from before and after we implemented this with Matchpoint, right? So this company had everything set up really, really well. They had 4 of the 5 questions answered beautifully. Will it do the job that they needed to do? They had product photos, they had demo videos, they had technical brochures, they had like what it's used for and stuff like that. So very easy for someone to answer that question on their page. They had price and financing options for can I afford it. They had estimated delivery date for will it arrive when I need to. And then they had in their FAQs right below the fold, they had returns, warranty, parts information, shipping information, all the questions that customers would answer when they're ready to make a purchase, but need to make sure that they're going to be safe if they do it and something goes wrong, right? But they didn't have anything about will it fit my vehicle. So we implemented Matchpoint for this company before they were had Matchpoint in there. Their e-commerce orders were 24% of their revenue, right? So they weren't really an e-commerce store. And if you think about the huge amount of throughput that we can have from like a really well-functioning e-commerce pipe, like I was telling you before, like maximum amount of people visiting, maximum amount of people purchasing, $100,000 per hour, which was much larger than that sales process. They were really missing out on a huge opportunity for their business. So we implemented Matchpoint, and in the first month after we implemented it, their e-commerce orders went up 99%. Like think about that. And this is at over 6 figures in revenue for e-commerce already. So their e-commerce revenue increased by over 122,000 in 1 month, and it went from 24% of their revenue to 49% of their revenue and 49% of their orders, right? So now they're maximizing the capability of their e-commerce pipeline. They're getting all this throughput, all these people that might have wanted to buy but didn't want to call and just left, they're now purchasing. All the people that wanted to buy and did call even though they didn't want to, now they're purchasing, they're having a better experience. It was a huge, huge win for them. And so the concept of understanding throughput and understanding where to focus your efforts to maximize your revenue, given the opportunities that you have, is super important to be able to tell, to be able to like improve your business. And in the age of the internet right now, and allowing people to self-serve and shop asynchronously from having someone to speak to, it's hugely important that you deliver on the necessary information that they need. And Matchpoint is like the final piece of the puzzle for heavy machinery companies because it answers that question that's so difficult to answer without it. Will it fit my vehicle? So if you like this, and if you have a company that is a rental company or an e-commerce company, and you want to experience results like that other company, reach out to me. Go to matchpoint.com and select your company type, either e-commerce or rental. Click that button, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and then book a call with me. I'll talk you through your numbers. We'll see what that integration can look like for your store. We'll talk through the nuances of it, and we'll see if we can get you results like this other company.